and
Oddworld.
Hey oddballs, I'm your host Jensen, and welcome to episode 105. I'm the type of person that feels like I'm so prepared for everything because I know months in advance that things are going to happen, and then all of a sudden it creeps up on me, and what do you know? My podcast birthday is on Friday. And that's okay. Life just happens so quick, and I swear I blink and things are here. So either way, I am so thankful to everyone who is listening and enjoying my podcast. And happy birthday to my podcast. I have some really good stories for you today. But before that, we're going to learn about a type of ghost. So here we go. It's
Lesson time.
Today's spirit lesson is the Poltergeist. Perhaps one of the more popular terms most of us have heard when it comes to ghosts. The word poltergeist actually means noisy ghost because it is said to have the ability to move or knock things over, make noise, and manipulate the physical environment. While many of us have heard the term before, a poltergeist is actually one of the rarest forms of hauntings, and to many, the most terrifying. Loud knocking sounds, lights turning on and off, doors slamming, even fires breaking out mysteriously have all been attributed to this type of spiritual disturbance. Another frightening aspect of the poltergeist is that the event usually starts out slowly and mildly, then begins to intensify. And while many times poltergeist activity is harmless and ends quickly, they have been known to actually become dangerous. Some experts explain it as a mass form of energy that a living person is controlling unknowingly. Whatever the case may be, poltergeists have caught the attention of paranormal enthusiasts and experts, scientists, and many others who are just plain curious. You know, I know it said that the poltergeist is the rarest spirit out there, but I don't know about that because a lot of things can get moved and a lot of doors and stuff get slammed. I mean, I know a lot of people hear noises and things like that, but a lot of the stories that I've read have had some kind of moving object in almost every episode or every other episode, I feel like. So I don't really know that I agree with it being the rarest, but I could be wrong. What do you think? Let me know. And we're going to go ahead and move on to stories.
This comes from your host's dad.
I was working on remodeling a dorm at an old Native American college campus. The project involved making several lower floor restrooms and showers handicap accessible and upgrading all the door hardware to new accessible types. With over 200 rooms and other doors needing hardware changes, I had the help of 2 excellent trim carpenters. The building, constructed in the mid to late 60s, boasted 3 floors and was surprisingly modern. During the summer, with the campus largely empty due to COVID, it was just my 2 carpenters and me. I would stop by occasionally to inspect their progress and offer any assistance they needed. They made quick work of the first floor, swiftly swapping out the old knob door hardware for lever lock sets. Encouraged by their efficiency, they decided to turn the installation on the second floor into a friendly competition to see who could complete their tasks the fastest. However, one of the carpenters began to suspect I was sabotaging his efforts to favor the other. He claimed I was moving his tools and slowing him down. I assured him I was merely checking on the crews in the other buildings on campus, which he eventually believed after calling me and finding I was elsewhere. As they progressed to the 3rd floor, both carpenters reported strange occurrences. They heard doors closing, and witnessed their tools and equipment being moved when they weren't looking. I, being naturally skeptical, dismissed their concerns as overactive imaginations. Towards the end of the week, I conducted a thorough inspection of each room, photographing completed work and ensuring everything was in order. On the second floor's north wing, where I began hearing doors close, despite being alone with the key, I marked each inspected door with painter's tape for clarity. The restroom doors, typically left open, were mysteriously closed during my inspections. Moving to the third floor, I encountered no issues in the south wing, but heard peculiar shuffling sounds resembling footsteps in the center section, although no one was there upon investigation. In the north wing, nearing the completion of my checks, I was startled by a sudden loud slam that sounded like someone was attempting to break the door off its hinges. Rushing to the room, I found all the doors wide open, as the carpenters had left them. Finishing the inspections and marking the rooms, I returned to find all the doors I had left open in the north wing were inexplicably closed again. Perplexed and alone in the building, I was unable to find any logical explanation for these occurrences. Okay, so this one was from my dad, and I remember him telling me about this because I immediately asked him if I could come and investigate this place. And of course, he asked permission, and we got it, and I got to go and investigate, and it was a lot of fun. I wish I would have had cameras rolling to capture some of the things that we encountered, but I did capture a face in one of the doorways. I took 2 pictures back to back, and one of them had a face that has a dark mustache and like longer hair. Kind of looks like they're from the 60s or 70s, honestly. But we also did the Estes method, and that's when I wish I would have had the cameras rolling because we got some really good responses with that. I hands down love the Estes method more than anything. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's where someone sits with a blindfold and headphones on with the sweep of a spirit box going. And then someone else, hopefully in another room, is asking questions. And then whatever the person hears on the sweep, they just say out loud. And it's one of my favorite methods to investigate with. So that's why I was really pleasantly surprised that I actually caught like a face on camera, because that's not something I've ever caught before. But this place is kind of like super haunted, honestly. My dad has many stories from this place. That was like one of the main ones, but just tons of noises and doors opening and all kinds of spooky things, honestly. The place that I believe this story was in is this maybe the same place that I caught the face in. But I do know that we went into this other building that was kind of like torn down, but not really. It was just being remodeled. I don't know. It had either been sitting. It was kind of like a auditorium or gym or something. I think it was actually a gym because it had a locker room. So yeah, that would make sense. But there was this little crawl space that Aaron and I decided to crawl in. And oh my God, it was the most interesting thing I've been in a while. So I'm going to set it up the best way I can. You're going downstairs and there's this hole in the wall into this little tiny room. So we crawled through the hole in the wall and now we're in this room. We can stand up in it and whatnot. Then there are stairs that go up maybe 3 or 4 stairs. And then there's this like, I don't know, platform maybe. You have to like crouch because it's very short. The ceiling to the floor is a very tight squeeze, but you can walk across that. So we did. We shimmied our little butts across that, and then we went down like 3 or 4 stairs. And then we were in this room, just this random ass room that was like forgotten and abandoned, and there was no other way to get to it except for the way that we just went. And we got some really strange responses on our S-Box, and our lights kept being weird. I don't know. It was just a spooky little room that had clearly been forgotten about. And just knowing that they were probably going to wall off that section where we entered in and all of that was just going to exist back there, is just a spooky feeling in my world, because how many places does that happen to? You know, where there's just a whole room that is a whole section that is just walled off. That's just there to be forgotten. Like, I don't know. Either way, the whole place was spooky. In that place at the very bottom, so kind of in the basement area, I want to say my dad had like an experience that he saw feet under the drywall. So the drywall was mostly up in some of the spots that they had like reframed, except for like maybe a foot or two off the ground. So I feel like he saw feet at one point, and then he freaked out because he realized he was by himself, and then he checked and there was nobody else there. I'll have to have him tell me that one exactly, but I feel like that's what happened. Either way, I thought it was pretty cool. I thought this was a little spooky story that he had, but there are tons more from this place for sure. Oh, and there was a hole in the floor. There's a hole in the floor to like this room that they couldn't figure out how to get to. It's like a basement under the basement, and my dad has this little camera that he stuck through the floor and like could twist it around, and it's like it feels like a horror movie. But there was nobody down there except there was a knife down there. So I don't know. It was interesting. It was spooky. Things happened, and yeah. I don't know what it is about that. I don't know if it's because there's just so much energy at a campus that it's like the spirits feed off that. I don't know. I'd be curious to see what you guys think. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the next story.
This comes from your host.
My mom's side of the family is pretty into the paranormal. Some being a little more spooked about it than others. But either way, we all typically enjoy it. I was around 15 or 16 when this happened. I was at my grandma's house for some kind of family function, so most of my aunts and uncles and cousins were there. I'm not sure how we got onto the topic, but my cousin A had a boyfriend who had a Ouija board. Of course, naturally, all of us wanted her to go get it. So my cousin A, my cousin J, and I went to my cousin A's boyfriend's house. Now, to make this whole experience spookier, my cousin A's boyfriend at the time's house was haunted by a little girl. So going to get the Ouija board on top of this was just so spooky. All three of us went inside when we got there, and my cousin Jay and I were standing in the kitchen, feeling a little eerie, but also really excited to get this Ouija board. My cousin A was chit-chatting with her boyfriend for a while, and then we finally all turned and left the house. We put the Ouija board in the back seat, and all three of us girls piled up in the car. My cousin A went to turn her car on as her boyfriend was waving goodbye. It didn't start. She tried to turn it on again, and it just kept clicking. Luckily, since her boyfriend was standing right there, he went and grabbed some jumper cables and pulled his truck up. He attached the jumper cables to his truck and her car, and then they both started. However, when he turned his truck on, the truck battery caught on fire. All of us girls freaked out, and he jumped out of his truck fast, grabbed something, and put the fire out real quick. Luckily, my cousin's car was running, so we didn't need the assistance of the truck anymore, but we definitely took it as a sign that maybe we shouldn't have this Ouija board. But we ended up taking it, and back to my grandma's house we went. It was dark at this point, and a few of my aunts and cousins all piled downstairs in my grandma's basement. They lit a couple candles and started asking questions. One of my aunt's old high school friends came through and had told her, nice boobs. Someone that my mom knew came through, and I won't give too much away for personal reasons, but he was on the other side holding his daughter from his girlfriend who had a miscarriage. A lot more questions had been asked and were answered, by spirits whom my family knew. And that's kind of it. They closed out the Ouija board and we all went back upstairs. So this one was wild because to get the Ouija board, we went over to my cousin's boyfriend's house and literally her car was dead. So when he jumped it, his car freaking caught on fire and all of us girls freaked out. And we were like, oh my God, what is going on? And we should have probably just left the Ouija board there because I'm just assuming that's why it caught on fire. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a mechanic. Maybe he did something wrong whenever he connected the jumper cables, but it was just weird. It was weird. It was also spooky being in his house. So we had that extra little heightened sense of spook because we're thinking we're going to see this little girl. And we had actually used this Ouija board before in his house. That's how we knew about it. And yeah, it was wild when we brought it to my grandma's. I know that the classmate came through and told my aunt nice boobs, which is hilarious because she had just had them done. And then someone my mom knows deeply had come through. And I don't know, it was really interesting. It was all happy and sad and just kind of like mixed emotions down there. And yeah, I don't know. So it's really interesting. I know a lot of people are against Ouija boards, but in a weird way, it was kind of wholesome. Which I know it sounds kind of stupid to use that word with a Ouija board, but it was interesting. And if you guys have any experiences with a Ouija board, let me know. I still have my Ouija board that I bought, oh my God, maybe a year ago at this point. But I still haven't used it because I'm kind of afraid now, which I don't know why, but I think it's because it's been probably used before. So I've said goodbye on it, but I feel like I really need to cleanse it or something before I use it. So if anybody has any ideas about that, please let me know. And if you have any paranormal stories, like either story or any paranormal story in general, head on over to my website and submit it. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And well, it's an odd world after all. Oddballs, thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to leave 5 stars or thumbs up on whatever podcast platform you listen on. If you have any comments for this episode, comment below or head over to Instagram and comment on this episode's preview. To submit a story or for more information, go to itsanoddworldafterall.com.